All right, my name is Mr. Reinhardt, just in case. So that's my phone number, that's my email, and come and see me whenever you need to, okay? Office hours, this is by appointment. I did my first year in college teaching, put certain hours I would be there, and I sat there lonely the entire time. So come and see me. It's right across the hall. It's not that, I'm not that important. You can come see me. All right, description of the class. A detailed examination of America's social, political, and economic structures. It also concentrates on those factors that encourage capitalism, free enterprise, and internal conflicts within America. So American history. We are going to start with some ancient history. We always take a few weeks and cover a little bit of ancient history, because unless you're a history major, you won't get that a class about ancient history at all. So take a little bit of time to cover some ancient history, and then we will quickly get into American history and the colonial era there. So, but American history. I got 3 textbooks there. This first one here, The Patriots' History of the United States. Very good book. Tamar agrees. Very good book. The version that you get from, if you get it from the bookstore, there's a couple of spots towards the end. We won't run into it till second semester, where there's some words that get crossed out. There's some quotes from the 60s that it's an accurate quote, what people actually said, but it's just, anyway, some curse words and stuff. So there's a few things, and if you order a book from Amazon or something, where that won't be crossed out, I'd be happy. I don't know. If you bring it to me, I can go and cross that stuff out, or take it to the bookstore. They can edit that stuff out for you. But very conservative book about American history. I've enjoyed reading it. Tamar's enjoyed reading it. So just pretend that you enjoy reading it. Whatever happens, just act like it's enjoyable. Don't make me feel bad. So we will, over the course of the 2 semesters, read the entire thing. Okay, and hopefully that's something that you think. I'm sorry. You might not be too excited about American history, sorry. But we've had Zambians in here and all kinds of other people, so you're just stuck. Hopefully you don't think of this as all just dread and pain. I think it's a very, very enjoyable reading. How many went to a public school? Okay, might be drastically different than your American history class in a public school, all right? So I think you'll enjoy it. Some of you are thinking, I don't know that I'll remember what I heard in high school, so I won't notice the difference, but very good book. We'll read that. If you look at the course requirements there, the first, under outside work, the first thing there is reading, and it really is just read, okay? It says a history of the world and a Patriots' history should be completely read according to the following schedules there. Number 1, partial credit will not be given. The first thing we'll talk about history of the world, but the second one there you see a Patriots' history, chapter 1, September 24th. Okay, I'm just going to bring a piece of paper in, a little legal pad or something, and send it around the room, and you'll put yes or no that you read. That's completely on the honor system. That might be really thin ice, but we're Christians. Hopefully you're not going to lie to me. Just read it or don't read it. So, and it really is, it's all or nothing. You could read them ahead of time. You don't have to wait till the night before. You know, the usual homework game. Do I have enough time to get my assignment done before I have to walk to class? You've got to narrow down where you've got fractions of seconds that makes the difference. Don't do that. You can do them well ahead of time. Just have to read it. So we'll read up through chapter 10 this first semester, and the second half we'll be there. Hopefully it matches up with what you read last year. Did you start with 11? Okay, so try to be consistent with that through the semesters. Okay, so questions about that? Okay. The Big Monster. This is that History of the World by Roberts. This thing you can rent in the bookstore if you just like big books on your shelves. Rachel McNabb, I think it was 59 cents or something like that she got on Amazon. So, I don't know. You bought it? Tamar's strange. It is a completely secular textbook. It's not Christian at all. It doesn't pretend to be Christian. In fact, the first couple chapters talk about early human beings and Homo sapiens and evolution. You know, it's completely secular. We read a couple of chapters there. You can see chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6 in book 3. Those are ones that talk about Greece and Rome. and that era of history. So we just read it to get that section out of it, and then you can take it back to the bookstore as soon as you read that. Put it on your shelf, whatever. But we're just going to read that. There might even be a copy in the library, so you can go get it and read it and return it or something. So, but anyway, just going to read that one section out of there. If you ever come to universal history, you'll get to read significantly larger portions of that book. But in here, just that much. Stephanie's excited. You two are weird together. So, okay. Questions about the reading? There's a schedule there. Those days we'll just come in and see if you read. The 17th is next week, so don't put that one off. So, is that a week from tomorrow? Yes. Okay. So, it's big pages and small print. Okay. So please don't pick it up next Thursday morning and try to go through it. So, this one is very dry and academic. This one is just very good, okay, and also educational. All right, so that's the first part of the outside work, just reading. The second part, each of you will submit a paper, a minimum of 2 pages in length, due on November the 2nd. It can go as long as you want, but it's got to be at least 2 pages. I'm amazed at how many students wrap up their entire work. Everything's tied together on the first line on page 3. It's amazing how that happens, but at least 2 pages. All right, the paper will discuss a current event topic that is assigned by me. I don't know, kind of assigned by me. What we do normally is throughout the semester, building up to that point, I'll let you guys bring up things that are happening in the world, current events in the world. And I'll say yes or no, that would be a good topic, or that won't be a good topic. So kind of assigned by me, but more you guys suggesting them, and then we'll talk about them, whether they'll be good or not. So. All right, so current event, minimum of 3 sources utilized for this assignment. So not just 3 sources in your bibliography, right? 3 that you actually reference and use, 3 utilized. All right, students may be called upon to share their research with the rest of the class. That's nothing formal. Usually the day we hand them in, I just open it up for you to comment about what you learned, anything interesting, that type of thing. Hopefully you learned something. We'll see. All right, and then the paper should contain the following 3 sections. And I do want these 3 sections, all right? Every year, at least one person just kind of writes for 2 pages, kind of in circles and randomly throwing in things about the topic. All right. I want these 3 things, all right? First thing is a summary of the event or the issue. If it might be old news by that point, but if you want to write about the clerk in Tennessee that got thrown in jail for refusing to issue gay marriage license, you guys familiar with that? I think she just got released. What's that?
Just heard about it.
Okay, it was a week or so ago. 2 queers came in to get a marriage license, and she's a Christian, and she said she wouldn't do it. She tried to let her clerks do it, and the courts or whoever, the upper people in the county said, no, you have to do it and sign it yourself. And she said, I'm not going to. So they threw her in jail for contempt of court. The news media keeps talking about how she's breaking the law, which is really irritating because all we have is a Supreme Court opinion. There's no law. I mean, and if I understand it right, she's actually asked that question, what law have I broken? Right? Because there's not one. But anyway, she was thrown in jail for refusing to issue the gay marriage licenses. So just a summary of that event. Just go through the details. And that part, not especially making judgment calls, just summarizing the event or the issue, whatever word fits best. All right, the second step, a summary of the possible or proposed solutions. Okay, for the issue with the girl in Tennessee, the lady, the clerk. People have proposed that she's an elected official. She has to decide either to issue the license or quit. You know, it doesn't matter if she's a Christian. Other people have said, her religious beliefs are being violated. She should be able to. There should be some option for her not to have to do that. Other people have said. Every clerk in the country should refuse to issue marriage licenses because the Supreme Court has no business sticking their nose in the business. There's been a whole bunch of different things proposed. And a summary of those, I have there possible or proposed. You might possibly think of a solution that no one else is, at least you haven't found. You could put it in there. This is a possible solution. All right, so possible or proposed. That will take you a little bit of time to read articles and find out what people are saying, find out the possible solutions or answers. Okay, so questions about that. Again, that's just summarizing them. I'm not asking you to pick one as being the best one or the right one. Just listing the different things people have proposed. Okay. The last one, you get to tell me which one is right. State and give support for the biblical solution. All right, based upon God's word, what is the right response to this particular issue? So, it may not have come up at all in your second point, in the possible proposed solution. Nobody might be even entertaining the Bible solution, right? But in that third part there, I want you to think about this as a Christian, not as a Republican or Democrat or Libertarian, any Green Party or not as whatever political party, as a Christian. What's the Bible answer to this issue? Okay. So it's only 2 pages long. I'm not looking for just pages and pages of stuff here. But 2 pages. Most freshmen, 2 pages is more than enough to read. So you think this is hard to read? Read your friend's paper sometime. Yes.
How old can a topic be to be considered recent? Like in the last year or last 2 years?
Definitely within the last year. And it kind of depends upon the topic, but current. Like the Iran nuclear deal, that would be...
Like ISIS, something like that? Or would those be considered recent or it's too old?
You would have to be something happening now. You couldn't go back and talk about the beheading of all the Christians on the shore in Egypt. You guys remember that was the one that was videotaped? If you want to watch something that turns your stomach, look up that video. All right. But that would be a little bit too old. But there are current things happening. You can write about those. Okay, so 2-page paper. Questions about that? I enjoy these actually, getting them in. You know, most of them. Every now and then there's one where I just grimace and have to read it. And we will, like I said, we'll talk about it in class if there's something you want to read about. You know, the one time this year you see something in the news. Oh, I want to write about that. Right. Bring it in and propose, and we can talk about it. So, all right. Next one, part 3. Each of you gets to write a critique about what's so great about America by Dinesh D'Souza. Small, little, friendly-looking book. Okay. Dinesh D'Souza. Anybody know anything about him? His parents hated him. Dinesh. You don't have to stand. You're welcome to if you want, but he worked in actually in the Reagan White House.
And then he's just the author. He's actually he's put in prison for a campaign.
Some tax thing, yeah.
Against Obama.
Yeah.
Made a documentary against Obama.
Oh yeah, he's a very conservative guy. That's all very true. But he grew up in India. He's an immigrant to this country, right? So the book is very good, but the fact that he didn't grow up here, I think it makes his view of what's so great about America different to me. It's a very good book. So anyway, you're going to read this, write a critique. Let's read the details. This critique should be a minimum of 2 pages in length. Again, you know, if you've got to write 8 pages, just remember that I have to read it, and it's very subjective. So if it's 8 pages of pain, it might reflect in the grade. So I'm kidding. I will try not to grade it based upon my personal taste. It's due October the 22nd. The APA style should be followed for the formatting, cover sheet, page, etc. APA style. No outline is required. A paper should not be turned in unless the book is completely finished. I do want you to read the entire book. Don't do what I have to claim that I did in high school. read the first and last chapters and just write very vaguely about what's in between. So it was it's a Charles Dickens book. I can't remember which one. And in about 8th grade, it just wasn't happening. So don't do that. Read the entire thing, okay? And again, I used to have people write yes or no that they read, but just when you turn your paper in, you're telling me that you read the book. All right, so read the whole thing. Let's go on here. The paper should be organized in the following 3 sections that are roughly of the same length. Be sure to put headings in the paper to distinguish between the sections. All right, first part, summary, then analysis, and then response. Let me back up. Roughly the same length. If you go for 2 pages on your summary, which should be, it's what do we got here? Oh, it's barely enough to get warmed up. Only 193 pages. And that's just a good evening with a cup of coffee. I got 193 pages. You could relatively easily go for 2 or 3 pages summarizing what he talks about. If you do that, then you need to go for 2 or 3 pages with the analysis and 2 or 3 pages with the response. All right. I used to get a page and 7/8 of summary and then a sentence or 2 for the last 2 things, and I don't want that. Okay. I want 2/3 of a page or so summarizing the book, 2/3 of a page or so for the analysis, and 2/3 of a page or so for the response, at minimum. If they go longer, all roughly the same length. And I'm not going to go through and count the words or the letters. I'm just going to, if your summary is 3 pages and you got 2 lines for the other 2, then there's going to be a problem. So just kind of roughly the same length. So, all right, summary, that's just what it sounds like, a brief summary of what the book talks about. And it does need to be brief if you're going to do that. All right, then an analysis. Analyze the book. This should be an evaluation of the book covering such things as, and I give you some suggestions. You don't have to limit to these. The grammar, does he use bad grammar and all kinds of things? The writing style, is it just really dull and monotonous, or is it exciting and engaging and you found yourself sneaking past lights out to read at night? Not just because you were behind and had to read, but because it was good. All right. Research and scholarship. I took a class once at Purdue. It's called, it's just the assassination of JFK. Talk about a whole semester of pain. But we watched several documentaries as part of this class. And one of them, there was about 6 lectures. And in the first lecture, he'd make these speculative statements. Like, this could have happened, and this could have happened, there could have been this, there could have been that. And then to start the second lecture by saying, we've proven now, and he would make those same statements, but now they became fact. And he would go on to make more speculations based upon nothing. And then the third lecture would start with, now that we've established all this as being true. And that's where you get to these crazy things of, 5 or 6 gunmen and someone in the storm drain, and you get to some really crazy things like that. He might do that, okay? Or he might do the opposite. You might say, wow, some places in there I disagreed with him, but I couldn't argue with his defense of his position, all right? Just that type of thing, research and scholarship, logical conclusions, etc. So analyze it. The second part there isn't just a joke. Due to the length of the paper, only the most striking and important parts of the evaluation need to be included. You're probably thinking, wow, I'm going to be stretching it to get that 2/3 of a page. But really, just normally when I read a book like this for a paper, I just keep a little 3x5 card there, and I just make notes. That is a well-made point, and just put the page number so it gives me something when I get done to go back for that. So. All right, so analysis and then response. A discussion of practical responses to the material presented. Things you could do, things Canadians could do to be more like us. Actually, we're going the other way. Pretty soon we're going to be looking at the free country to the north. So just a response to that. So we think more of ways you could respond. You could talk about society as a whole, but more how to respond to that. So. Okay, so questions about that? Yes?
Why did his parents hate him?
Oh, I was joking about his name, Dinesh. Who would name their kid that? I don't think that they hated him. He talks about growing up in India some. All right, part D, the grading. Test 50%, the readings 50%, papers 50%, or sorry, wow. 25 and 25, 50, 25, 25. That's the weighting for the grades. So the two papers, they both make up that 25%, so essentially 12.5 for each paper. It's the readings, all of the different due dates are thrown together to make up the 25%. The last part there, hopefully all the dates match what's on the front side. It's just a listing in chronological order of when things are due. Okay. I started to put that together several years for my own benefit, but I thought it might be useful for you guys too. So the first thing is the history of the world, monstrosity, and then Patriots history, and then a test on October the 1st. That's a little bit sooner than I sometimes give it, but I'm going to be gone that day, so is either give you no class and a day off, or have a test. So we went with the test. All right, questions about the requirements?
Will you be posting all this on Schoology?
Maybe. I got to figure out how Schoology works. I've been slow to the game getting to Schoology, but I have an account set up. I can log in and see updates. I very well likely will.
What would you prefer us to, if we're turning in like our papers? Would you prefer it on Schoology or?
Oh, I'd rather them hard copies in class, at least at this point. The electronic copies is hard to write on, and so. All right, let me give you a little bit of material that's outside of our course requirements. All right, the first thing we're going to look at here is the timeline. Some dates. On all of the tests, there's going to be a question or maybe a statement. Give the timeline. And you just have to give me these dates and events. That's it. I tried to pick out ones that are important, and I just want you to learn them. Just memorize them. The other option is to leave it up to you to guess which dates are important and hope that... so I picked these out to try to give you a kind of a skeleton of the framework of history, so that when you hear about some event, like have I said that, in Europe in 600 AD, something comes to mind. Does anything come to mind, anybody? It did exist at that point. What's that?
Barbarian invasion of Rome.
That's before that, a couple hundred years, but it's close. It's just into the Middle Ages, into the Dark Ages, just after the collapse of Rome, 476.
That'd be Charlemagne.
In 600, he would be, I'd have to look it up. He's close, right in that time frame. So anyway, I'd like you to, when you hear about something like that, be able to at least have some time frame to fit it in. That's my goal. My wife thinks I'm weird, and you're welcome to agree with her, but yes? Oh, nothing. I just picked that date out. So I like going to look at old graveyards and look at when people lived and died, and I say, oh, that person, they were alive when the first flight was made in North Carolina, or they were alive for the stock market crash, or they were alive when Edison invented the light bulb, or what did someone say? Anyway, I like to have certain dates memorized to give me kind of those blocks. So as we look at these, that's my attempt to give you kind of those time frames. You might think, wow, I don't understand why you picked those dates. But that's my goal, to give you some dates to hang other events on. So, all right, first one is actually two dates together. Anybody have any idea what happened then? 490, 480 BC. We're going backwards. So the 490 one took place first, and then the 480. We're working up to zero, or back to zero, or whatever the right.
The Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem?
No. It has been. No, that's not it. It's two different invasions. Marathon, Thermopylae. Okay, Persians invading Greece. All right, that would be fun. I have Greeks. Whew. Greece versus Medes and Persians. Esther's husband when he went to kill all the Greeks. that count. Greeks versus Medes and Persians. The Battle of Marathon, Battle of Thermopylae up there in the mountains, Salamis, not quite as well known. That confrontation. Why would this confrontation make it? Why not? I mean, there's invasions all over world history. Why these two? Stephanie? The Persians were stopped. Okay. I'm sorry?
Greece became more powerful.
Greece became, okay. Yes? Gregory?
It basically highlights the falling of one nation and the rising of another. As Prophet said that the Greeks.
Okay, there's I think it's Ezekiel.
Yes.
That's an amazing passage to read through that was written several hundred years before this, prophesying some of this stuff. Okay. We have with the Greeks, all that we think of, hopefully you think of something with Greece, some of the science, some of the government philosophy. And over here we have just straight, absolute monarchy, absolute no freedom. We have two completely different worldviews and ideologies at war here. And the Greeks win. All right? The Persians and Medes and Persians, they'd conquered all kinds of other people and they're stopped here. And we have the Greeks on the rise here and beginning to flourish. So in light of world history, a monumental shift. So, all right, let's go on. 334 to 323.
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. Amazing man in lots of ways, not a Christian at all, but amazingly skilled and talented military leader. And he takes the Greek culture and by brute military force, spreads it all over the world by conquering lots of places. This date is sometime around there. Sometimes I just leave it blank, but sometime around BC, 0. Some people put it 4, sometime right in that time frame. Birth of Christ. Christ's birth, life, death, burial, resurrection, that really is the center of all of history. I mean, that before that point, God was orchestrating things to prepare the world for Christ and salvation. And after that point, we see him spreading the gospel and preparing for the end times. That really is the hinge point of all of history. So not just for Christians, just generally speaking, universally true. Yeah.
At what point would time change? Because it was
Somehow at some point we got it wrong. Some people, this is, as far as I know, is the best guess of when he was actually born. But so for years I just put nothing there, birth of Christ, somewhere around 0, but it's right in that time, right in that window. So.
Sir, there was when the Romans they figured out that their calendar was wrong because of leap years, and so they went back and it was their 4 years off.
Okay.
So instead of changing the year per year, they changed their original year.
Okay. So that'll explain it. That sounds like something from Strauss. Is that? No? Okay. All right, next one. This is AD, all the rest are AD. 313. Somebody had a vision. There's a guy at least, so we don't get any weird cults out of it. Somebody said it. Who's that? Constantine. Okay, remember anything about his vision? Or what? Okay. Yes, said sail across. And by this, in this sign, conquer, add, in hoc vincenz. Is that right? Latin, in this sign conquer. So here we have Constantine being converted and very, very loosely converted to Christianity. Well, maybe a better, I have this actually on my timeline. Constantine makes Christianity legal. He had this great vision, supposedly, about conquering in the sign of the cross, wins this great victory, and then makes Christianity legal. Before that point, we have waves of persecution of Rome trying to kill the Christians. And now all of a sudden, Christianity is legal. Can we think of a downside to that? I think it's it's always nice when the government doesn't periodically just grab Christians at random and feed them to lions. I'm not especially excited about that happening to me. Maybe you guys, but not to me. But there's a definite downside to this.
It let the government control the church.
Okay, it eventually led to the Roman Catholic Church. All right, it became legal. There was all of a sudden there was no cost associated with being a Christian. So anybody could be a Christian. It was, and eventually gets major perversions and the meshing of the church and state and the Catholic Church eventually. So, all right, Constantine making Christianity legal. I mentioned that date earlier in passing. We're going to make Stephanie share. She had back surgery. We got to make sure she paces herself. Not too much stress. 476. 500 is the start of the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages. This is the event really that marks that fall of Rome. By this point, the Roman Empire was hardly anything. But this was when the last emperor is taken off of the throne and there is no longer a Rome, 476. And it does throw Europe into chaos. It starts really before this point, but Europe is thrown into chaos here. So, start of the Middle Ages. (1096 to 1291). Jacob was saying something. So, no. Nothing that I need to hear. Maybe I should hear it. Any ideas? Stephanie? Crusades. This is from the time of the first crusade leaving to the time that the last territory that was conquered in the Crusades is taken back by the Muslims. So, it's interesting today for Muslim apologists to say, "Oh, the Crusades, you guys also killed us." All right, at a certain point, you got to let it go. It's been almost 800 years. All right, here's one for. I was going to say the dummies in the class, but that's not very nice. The chronologically challenged in the class. 1492. All right, Columbus. This one also is a fairly well-known one. 1588.
Is that the founding of Jamestown?
No, but we're getting close to that. Joseph and Stephanie, know? Anybody else? Major naval battle won by a woman. At least she was the queen. That's despite that fact, Stephanie. Yes. Spanish Armada. Spain, with all of its might and power, goes after England and loses. I mean, this is, it'd be like when we went after Saddam Hussein, Iraq beating us or something. It shouldn't have happened. Right? This was really a monumental defeat for Spain. Very, very important day. So anyway, Spanish Armada, 1588. Let's Let's go on. 1620. If you went to a Christian school especially, you should know about the Pilgrims. Woo! Pilgrims. 1730s, 1740s.
Great Awakening.
Great Awakening. Major effect on America and elsewhere. Even secular historians recognize the change that was wrought by this thing. Calvin Coolidge made a statement about how America's founding was the result of that, the spiritual awakening and the renewed vision that people had of God and our importance to God that created our foundation. So, all right, Great Awakening, very important event. 56 to 63, 1700. Chef Caleb tells us about this one. Do you know? Who said that? Okay, it's the French and Indian War. Some French connection. Caleb, right? Okay. French and Indian War. It was the French and the Indians against the English. All right. Make Caleb answer this one too. Declaration of Independence. Are there any other foreign students? You're a foreign student? Oh, Gregory. I can figure Gregory. So we got two. Where are we at? 1781. Who wants that one? Should make Miles answer, so at least he quits yawning. All right, Stephanie. Yes, Yorktown. The effective end of the American War for Independence. Right? The treaty is not till 83, but that really is the end. 1789. This is the creation of an antiquated document that's ignored by everybody, basically. Constitution. Right, this is when it goes into effect. Liberals only go to the Constitution when they're trying to claim it supports the right to kill babies at will, or guys to get married. If you actually read the Constitution where it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, that doesn't mean that. That means the government can regulate your guns. Right. I just finished a book this last night called What Would the Founders Say? Very good book. And one of them was What Would they say about gun control? And basically, they would have advocated that everybody own military-grade weapons. Right. And by that it would be not an AR-15, a fully automatic AR-15, with enough ammo to sustain yourself in a firefight.
That's what they do in Israel.
Yeah.
They supply every man.
So, but anyways, sometimes people quote the founding fathers and say, "Oh, they didn't like guns. They didn't." There was. How do we get to that? The Constitution. One of the governors of the colonies was worried about his colony because he said the people in his colony did not have enough. I forget the phrase, but he was basically saying military-grade weapons. It'd be like somebody. Imagine the mayor of Chicago saying, in Chicago, there's too many 22 rifles. We need more AR-15s and 30-06s. But that was his worry. We don't have enough real weapons in our colony owned by the people, the citizens. So, all right, Constitution. It's still supposedly law of the land, but it is ignored flagrantly by everybody. So, come to U.S. Constitution next year, first semester, and we'll read through it. 1803. Stephanie does rhyme with 1803, but let's wait. We buy something. Lard. No, that's a little bit later. Louisiana Purchase. Anybody from that area? So we can bash them as much as we want. Well, California really wasn't.
Tennessee.
Yeah. Tennessee. No, that had to be south or west of the Mississippi. Dude, so. All right, Louisiana. We could argue whether or not it was, we got New Orleans out of it. Is that an asset? Places where they build houses below sea level and complain when they flood. All right, 1803, let's go to 1812 to 14. War of 1812, very good. 1823. Oh.
What did we purchase from Louisiana?
Oh, we bought from France. Louisiana, basically everything west of the Mississippi to the Rockies.
So does that make New York?
No,
Wait, is that west?
that's east, the other direction.
So we bought California?
California was past the Rockies, so that was not included. But a major chunk of land.
I need a map.
Okay.
Would Indiana be included in that?
No, I just noticed. We're supposed to have maps in here. There's a map state. It's always there. I didn't even think about it. Well, we will look at the map. I'll find it. I don't know where it went to over the summer. So, but yeah, a map would help.
The Mexican War?
No, not the Mexican War. That's coming.
So the Tripoli campaign.
No, but that's fun too. This is a doctrine stated by Monroe. Monroe Doctrine. 46 to 48? 1846 to 48. Oh, before that, that's just the Monroe Doctrine. I should write better since we're getting videotaped. Monroe Doctrine. 1846 to 48. I typed my notes for that reason. Morgan? Let your geeky cousin answer. Stephanie? Yeah, War of Mexico, sorry. Two more. 1861 to 65. Civil War. And the one date right in the middle of that thing, 1863. Were you here like you? Tamar cheated. No.
Battle of Gettysburg?
Okay, and
Vicksburg.
Gettysburg and Vicksburg, both that year. Gettysburg and Vicksburg. All right, so look at that. Piece of cake.
We're not going past 1865?
Not this semester. My goal for a semester is to get through the battles of the Civil War. So, yes.
How about 1783, I think the property was worth.
That's there's other good things we could put here, but yeah. So I tried to pick ones that are kind of those hinge points of history, like if somebody was talking about 1862. I want you to realize, okay, that's before Gettysburg and Vicksburg. That's after Gettysburg and Vicksburg. Really, it was just a matter of time. I mean, those were two massive victories or defeats for the South, victory for the North, and it just became a matter of time after that. But before that, it did go back and forth, and 1862. So okay, that was before Gettysburg. I tried to pick dates that are like that. So, all right, on the test it just says give the timeline. You just have to list them. You don't even have to do it in order. It is a little bit easier on me if you do it in order, and probably easier on you if you do it in order. But if you get stuck and you remember some out of order, that's fine.
I have a question about the Greeks first. Should we put like 490 BC to 480 BC, or just 490 BC and 480 BC?
I won't mark it off if you do it too, but it was two different invasions. The second one was Esther's husband. I always enjoy that when you see the Sunday school pictures of this little guy sitting on the throne that wanted to kill all the Greeks. And Herodotus, I think it was, said his army was so big that when they stopped to drink, rivers would run dry. A little bit of exaggeration, but. I think every test, this is 20 points of the test. So each event basically is 1 point, free 20 points. All right, you should, and I can understand missing one or two, especially on the first one, but it really should be a free 20 points. All right. I haven't done it yet, but I thought of having people that miss 4 or more or something come up to the front of the classroom so we could laugh at them or something. But really, it's free points. So I know it takes a little time to memorize it, but I think it's worthwhile. All right, let's do one more thing, and then we'll have to stop. So, let's talk a little bit about philosophy of history and a definition of history as we get started. And then tomorrow, we need to come back tomorrow because of the schedule. We will jump into some of that ancient history and look at some of the early civilizations. But today, we'll just look at the definition, and I think we'll stop there. All right, before I give you the definition, it's very important to have the right view of history, have the right philosophy of history. You can look at all kinds of people that have strange ideas about history. Karl Marx, anybody know how he explains all of history? Now, I might be worried if you've read Marx a whole lot and know this answer, but he claimed that all of history is just a record of the rich and the poor fighting against each other. The rich trying to maintain their position of power and authority, and the poor trying to take it away from them and become the rich and powerful. He thought all of history was that struggle. That's why his solution was getting rid of private property. If there's no rich and no poor, if everything's owned in common, then all of a sudden the struggle's gone. Now that's wrong. Okay, please don't say, wow, I like that. It's wrong, right? But he had a completely skewed view of history that led to those. He also rejects God and other things. But you can look lots of different places and find people's view of history. The term that I like to use for the right view of history is providential history. As we look at history, we really should think of providence, God orchestrating, God involved. Let me give you a definition. It's a little bit long and sounds sophisticated, but really it's just saying God is in charge. So here's the definition of providential history. The superintending, loving, caring hand of God. The superintending, loving, caring hand of God, directing each individual, each nation, each creature, and each event in history. I'll repeat that. The superintending, loving, caring hand of God, directing each individual, each nation, each creature, and each event in history. Can anybody think, well, let's write it down. One more time? Okay. The superintending, loving, caring hand of God, directing each individual, each nation, each creature, and each event in history. Can we think of a time where God directed and used an individual? Moses. Okay, go back to your Sunday school lessons. How about a nation? Go back to your Sunday school lessons.
He used the United States to give Israel their recognition worldwide.
Okay, going to modern times, America was instrumental in helping Israel establish their independence and recognition. Okay.
He used Babylon for the Babylonian captivity.
Okay, yeah, Babylon to punish Israel. We talk about the southern half. You can talk about Assyria being used to punish the northern half. Okay. What about a creature? To me, there's at least a couple of times in the Bible where God used a creature that stick out.
God used them to talk to the prophet was, or when God used a donkey.
Oh, the donkey. Okay, yeah, to yell at the prophet, "Hey, idiot, what are you doing?" Or a small little fish swallowing Jonah, or the ravens coming to feed Elijah. All right, creature, and then each event in history. Okay, 2 comments about this definition, and then we'll stop. First comment is this puts God in charge. God is in charge of history. I mean, it's when we study history, we're studying. It's a record of what God has done. All right. Let me read a couple of verses. Proverbs 21:1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. All right. God is in control of the heart of the king. And then one over in Acts. There's lots of verses along this line we could look at. Acts 17. Verse 26. And hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation. So God's made us all of one blood. So me and Valerie and Miles. Any other ethnicities in here? Where God's saying we're all the same. Oh yeah, we're all the same. A little bit different skin color, but that's no big difference. And then more to the point here, he determined the times that they'd be around and the bounds of their habitation. Okay, so God in control. All right, we see that in our definition, and the Bible supports that idea. God is in control. Sometimes we might look at something in history and say, wow, what was God doing? How could he allow that to happen? There's things that I look at, I don't know. All right, we are like little children compared to God, and we can't see or even understand everything, and that's sometimes where we just have to have some faith. If you've ever driven with a little kid, or you might remember sometime as a little kid saying something like, are we lost, Dad? Do you know where you're going? Right, Olivia likes to do that. Are you sure we're going to the right store, Daddy? If we go to a different way. Right? No, it's just because she's a stupid little kid and she doesn't know where we're going. And sometimes we can look at history and respond that same way. But God is still in charge, even if we don't understand exactly. So, second point I'd like to make is that Christ is the focal point of history. We mentioned that in our timeline. Christ is the focal point. Before that point, the world was being prepared. The Bible in Galatians talks about when the fullness of time was come, when everything was ready, Christ came. And after that point, we see God orchestrating the gospel being spread, preparing for the end times at some point in the future. Christ, though, being that hinge in really all areas. We can think about it spiritually and the difference between the Old Testament covenant and the New Testament covenant, but just in all of the world, that one event is the hinge point. So, all right, so definition, providential history. Questions on that? Okay, tomorrow we will jump into some of the early civilizations. We're not going to look at all of them, just hit a few of them to give us a taste of what's there. So, but that'll be tomorrow. You are dismissed.